Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's good to be with you, man.
Yeah, I think as I told you off the air, I've got your Pursuit of Excellence book in all the coaches' hands, and hopefully that'll infiltrate the entire community, the Wicked Smart community. So good stuff. Um, you had the opportunity clearly to be with some amazing peeps in that by looking at that book. And before I dive in there, I got a bunch of things to peel back. I want to hear about the Welcome to the Management book, and then I kind of want to go back to your story from corporate to entrepreneurship. So I'll go there next. But tell us about the Welcome to Management first.
First book, I thought of a time in my career that I was terrible. And that's when I got initially promoted from an individual contributor role to become a manager in corporate America. And I'd led in sports, playing football, baseball, basketball, played football in college and a little bit afterwards. So I'd led as a quarterback. And yes, there are some of those skills that are transferable to the corporate world, but there's a lot that I had to learn. And so I really I had great mentors along the way that really pushed me to document my process and what I was learning as I was going, all of the mistakes that I was making and how I was trying to fix them. In addition to that, I did have my podcast going for years, and so there's a lot of feedback and there's a lot of I would say learning from the experiences of people far wiser and more experienced than me from a management perspective. So it's a combination of my story and mistakes and key learnings, as well as those of people who are far wiser than me. And particularly, I thought it was good to niche down to a specific moment in your career that's really hard. It's not abnormal for people who perform at the top or near the top of the stack rankings in a sales organization to then get an opportunity to be promoted simply because they were good as an individual contributor, yet not really having the requisite skills to be a good manager of a team. And so that was me. And I think I'm better at it now. And I try my best to help others not make the same mistakes that I made when I got promoted.
I love it. So you mentioned mentors, and you mentioned that last sentence about not make the same mistakes. Isn't that's kind of the whole mentor thing? Like I always say to people, don't reinvent the wheel. There's someone out there that went through that same crap and you can avoid it.
Exactly. And you still have to learn through trial, and you still have to learn through doing. With that said, there are some aspects of the role that it would be helpful to have some sort of a guide, some sort of a manual, and that's what I tried to write. I mean, and a lot of authors say this, but I wrote the book that I needed, that I wish I had at that point in my career. And the cool thing about it is that not only as I think it's kind of played a really good role in that space where people are basically promoting somebody for the first time and handing them this book after they shake their hand. But it seems that senior leaders are getting something out of it too, which is a great bonus for me, because it wasn't necessarily written for the person who's a senior leader. It was written for that person to give it to someone who has been promoted. But I'm enjoying the fact that they seem to be getting value from it too.
It's awesome. So because we have in our Wicked Smart community, Ryan, most of the people who come to us to learn how to do real estate the way we do it, they're coming from corporate. And I'm seeing like all kinds of challenges with making the entrepreneur jump. So can you take us back? Because I'm sure there's lessons there, like your how, why, when, and then your challenges that you overcame to go into the entrepreneurship mode. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of it is I had no intention to ever leave corporate America. I had no dream or desire. I enjoyed my teams. I enjoyed my jobs a lot. I mean, I started as a sales rep after I got done playing football after college, and got promoted to management and then to director. And then ultimately I was a VP of sales in charge of about $500 million of revenue for a company called Elsevier Clinical Solutions, working in the healthcare space. Elsevier and LexisNexis, the two places where I've worked, are owned by the same parent company. So I enjoyed that. I started my podcast about 7.5 years ago, immediately after finishing my MBA. I got my MBA One, because I thought it would help me in my career. I learned a lot because my undergraduate degree is in communication, so I needed to be more well-rounded and understand business better, and so I went back to school. It took me 6 years. I had to hire numerous tutors to help me get that done. I didn't love the process of all the classes I was forced to take, but I understand it. You have to understand business as a whole, and there are some aspects to it that just for me aren't particularly fun, but I did it. And the company paid for it. And so I felt once I finished that I was wasting company money by not using the educational reimbursement that they provided for us. So I thought, well, I need to go back to school again. But again, I didn't love the entire process of earning my MBA because I didn't really get to pick the classes. They told me you got to take this, this, and this in order to get this certification of a master's of business administration. And so instead, I was a big podcast listener at the time. I thought, what if I created my own form of a leadership PhD program where I get to pick all of the teachers and the courses are me speaking with them,
Super
deep,
cool.
long-form conversations. I'll publish them so that others could perhaps learn along with me, and I'll name it the Learning Leader Show because my favorite leaders, coaches, bosses, teachers are those who believe, I don't have this thing figured out. I'm trying to learn more each day. I'm trying, as Charlie Munger might say, go to bed a little bit wiser each night than when I woke up in the morning. And so I think that mindset is what was driven by it. And then the funny thing that started happening, Chris, a couple years into it was a lot of requests for speaking engagements, consulting, helping with leadership teams at other companies. And it got kind of weird because I'm a VP of sales at a company using all of my PTO days to go speak and actually work with other businesses. And I was never given an ultimatum, but there were conversations like, hey, man, what's going on? Where's your focus? That type, which I get. I completely understand a president of a company talking to his head of sales saying, what's going on? I'm seeing you online speaking and doing all this work. So it came to the point where I felt I either needed to go all in on my job and my career or all in on the podcast and everything that comes along with that. And I felt like I could probably always get a job, but I don't know if you always could have this opportunity that you've built something, even though it was by mistake and it wasn't with any intention of building it to where it was, that now it's creating enough opportunity where the market is telling me, it wasn't me telling them, it was the market telling me there's something here, maybe you should pursue it. And so in 2017, that's what I elected to do.
That's cool. So I'm curious, just because I have obviously our show in 17, how many episodes into your podcast were you roughly?
I'd have to check. I started in 2015, so probably a couple hundred, or maybe less than that, actually, now I think about it. Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting that you treat it as an education too. I mean, my son he was in a coma from a snowboard accident, and I just literally put together a curriculum for him instead of college. So I found that interesting that you put down your thing. That's cool.
Wow.
So when I'm in your book and I'm like 90% done, my brain went immediately to, I'd love to know, like, in my career, I can look at mentors or masterminds or something and go, geez, when I met Ryan, an idea came out of that. And because of that, I saw like literally a quantifiable return, $250,000, million, 2 million, whatever. Are there 1 or 2 or 3 ahas in all these interviews that you can look back and go, yeah, because of that, either financially or mental or other, family, doesn't matter, where something that banged you and you went, yeah, that was like life changing. Anything that comes to mind with that? You get amazing guests.
I really actually like that question. I think it's something I need to think about a little bit more. So I am going to probably write about that now. It's a good prompt. I love writing prompts. That's how I write books. Hire coaches that then deliver prompts, and I have to respond to them. It's like the Q&A. I think what I gather from so many people, whether it's Donald Miller or Liz Weissman or Ryan Holiday, is the fact of being someone who, and I don't know if this is an aha, but I mean, it's a way I try to live now, is the fact that if your mentality is, I must be adding value to your life, Chris, and to the lives of others. And if I'm not consistently, regularly showing up as a value add, there's no need for me. There's no need for me to even exist. There's no need for me to be a part of your life. And so I just think it's like the default setting now in my mindset is, if I'm not adding value to Chris's life during this hour conversation and to people listening, there's really no use for me. And maybe that sounds bad. I don't know. But like I view every relationship that way. I view almost every interaction that way. And I guess at times it can be tiring, but I was in Iowa giving a keynote 2 days ago, and my whole thought process was I have to be adding distinct, measurable value to every person in here, and especially to the people who chose to book me for this engagement. Like, what am I doing? And I think that's a prompt that I regularly ask myself. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not being a good friend. I'm not being a good, whether it's a coach or an advisor or a leader, I'm not being a good interviewer. And I feel like I've heard that from a number of people, of just being a value, like almost viewing yourself as a product. And that product has to add value to others' lives in sometimes different ways. And to me, that's how I view the world now is what can I do? What am I doing to be a value-added resource for others? And if I consistently show up and do that, things seem to go well. Opportunities seem to keep coming, and that's a good indicator that it seems like it's the right way to go.
No, I love the mindset going into that. So I guess my question to follow up to that, to peel that onion back a bit, is on these keynotes, because you do a bunch, is there a topic? Well, first of all, are they all the same topics? And if not, is there a topic that you go, like, I love this one, I think I can add the most value here? And what would that topic be?
I mean, it's funny. I was calling my kind of core keynote. All of them are customized a little bit based upon on the audience and what they do. So I do interviews with people who are going to be in the seats to try to understand where they're at. But the title was The Pursuit of Excellence. That's how the second book's title came about, which really is a series of ideas, stories, and practical application for the person sitting in that seat or the person reading that book, to say, okay, the ideas are maybe make you think differently about something. The stories are obviously the attention grabber. They get you there. I think throughout that, then you need to have some of the scientific research to back up those stories to prove that they're true. And then you have to answer the question, so what? Why should I care? And so through the keynotes and through books, I view them the same way, is that I have to answer all of those. I have to show up with each of those. I got to grab you with some of these funny and engaging stories. I got to share some of the scientific research. Even though some people yawn at that stuff, I think it's important because you got to prove it true. And then you most importantly, I think you have to answer the question, like, so what, man? Why should I care? And that's the practical application aspect of each of it. So when I give a keynote and it's titled The Pursuit of Excellence, I'm sharing a combination of stories that I've learned either from my own life or from others. And then I'm tying it back to the people sitting in those seats and thinking of the challenges they deal with and the good things happening in their lives. So how they can take from those stories and apply them into their life. And if I've done a good job, not only are there some memorable moments, which really stick in their mind, then there's some memorable action that they could take afterwards. And the thing that warms my heart the most from those keynotes is maybe I'll receive an email 6 months later where someone said, remember we did the Who Was Your Who exercise and you told the story? Well, I've taken action on that based on what you told me to do, and now here's how it's made my life measurably better. I mean, that's the thing, man. That's what it's all about. So that's what I tried to have happen. Like, that's a goal of mine, is to receive those emails months later from people who were sitting in seats at a keynote or even listening to podcasts and reading a book. I think all of that is the way to kind of me providing value for others.
So when you were interviewing, I know you do an enormous amount of prep just by going through your stuff. Are there, and this is probably very broad because you've interviewed so many people, are there one or two of those interviews that you go, that person just dropped a bomb? And I know they're all great. I'm just wondering if a couple stand out to you, because I went through all your shows, not all your shows. I went through many of your shows and they're all cool to me, but I'm just wondering in your seat, if anything really stuck out. And why?
I feel grateful that happens a lot. The first ones that come to mind as far as like bomb droppers of just being so good, or every answer is like amazes me. Number 78 is with Kat Cole. Kat Cole is on the top of my mind because I'm interviewing her again in 2 weeks. That's one where the host doesn't even matter. I mean, I was terrible. It was 78. It was really early days. She was on the phone, so like the audio quality wasn't even good, and you'll forget about that within like 5 minutes. That's how good. Yeah. She's so precise and a wordsmith. and practical and an amazing storyteller. So Kat's the first one that comes to mind. I also think of Admiral William McRaven of the Make Your Bed fame. He gave that commencement speech at University of Texas. McRaven is also another amazing storyteller. Really, you could tell he's worked on speaking. So he's really a really good communicator. And I think the people that are best, they've done amazing things in their lives. And so in his case, when he was detailing the prep process and the execution of the Bin Laden raid, which he was in charge of, blew my mind. Because he talked about the months and months of work and the all the potential bad things that could happen, and then how they went and executed the mission, and they got him. And then I said, man, what were you thinking afterwards? Because he laid a Navy SEAL down next to his body to measure him. I'm like, what did you do next? Where did you guys celebrate? You go to a party? What do you? He goes, I had 10 other missions going on at that exact same time. What do you think I was doing? I was basically on comms talking with all of them to ensure those missions with those 10 other missions were going well. And I just thought, this guy's an alien. Like, he's just amazing. I don't know how somebody could perform at that high a level. It's like one of the greatest moments of our country's history, and the guy's already worrying about all the other things that he's in charge of. So I guess the first two, if you ask me this, I'm sure I'd have different answers every day, but Cat Cole comes to mind, and McRaven is another one that just blew my mind.
So how do you even, this just came to me, how do you even pick up a book now with the caliber of people you have interviewed? How do you get excited about, and do you pick up books or audiobooks to read? I mean, you have them on your show. You have their whole story like you just did.
So there's a good and bad thing with books. One, I'm always preparing for a podcast or two or three, and so I'm always reading a couple books of guests. Yeah, I would say it's hard to read for pleasure. For example, I'm reading Ron Chernow's book on George Washington. And it's amazing. It's a great book. It's huge, but so often I have to go away from that to prepare for the next few guests. So I'm almost never reading without thinking about questions that could come from that. So in a way, I don't want to say it's ruined reading, because it hasn't. I love reading. Books are the greatest investment and the greatest return on your investment in the history of the world. They truly are. You spend $20 bucks and you can peer inside the heart and soul and mind of these amazing thinkers. So I would say, though, I don't read a ton for pleasure. I'm reading usually with a purpose, and I detail it on my phone usually, where I'm opening up and I'm writing notes and ideas and thoughts based on what they've written in their books, thinking like, what line could I take here? What could that lead to? What might their answer be, which would then lead to a potential follow-up? Where could I go with that? When do we keep going versus when do we move on to something else? So I'm thinking of that the whole time while reading these books, and then having to pause, take notes, think about it, right, and then do the final outline as the interview's coming up. So to me, it's never ending. It happened. I was on a plane yesterday, and that's what I was doing the whole time, was reading, pausing, note-taking, thinking, what question, how should I open, where should I go? It's just never ending. And in a way, I guess that's just how it is. I don't really think of I don't know if I could ever go back. In a way, that's just how I operate now on a daily basis. Yeah.
What I want to pivot to now, Ryan, is I mentioned earlier our community, and I mentioned the genius model to you before we got on the show. What I didn't say was the biggest gap or frustration for us as owners and coaches is this: we teach the same skill set piece to all investors. We teach, here's how you do a deal, okay, in its simplest form. Yet, because of the mindset piece, in my opinion, but I want yours, it takes some people literally 30 days to do a deal, and some people 365. Those are true statistics in our company metrics. So why do you think it's such a big gap mentally? Because you've been the entrepreneur route, you've been the corporate route, you're building your own business now, you talk to amazing people. Like, what the heck do you think stops them from doing it more quickly? And is it mental? Is the mindset?
It's probably scary. I'm guessing people are fearful of making a mistake. I don't like to bifurcate the world, but I have noticed that there are talkers and there are doers, and the people who seem to make it happen are the doers. They still make mistakes, but they're able to move a little bit faster. They're able to pull the trigger. They're able to make decisions. I learned this as a quarterback. Like, you can't wait. You gotta let go of the ball before the receiver breaks. Right. That's why sometimes you throw interceptions and it's like, you threw it right to the guy. Well, it's like, well, yeah, I have to anticipate. That's part of being a quarterback. And sometimes if the receiver breaks left instead when he's supposed to break right, and I threw it as he's going to break where he should have, and he's not there, and it goes right to the chest of the defender, that's how it goes sometimes. I think the same thing in this world of making a deal in 30 days versus 365. The person who makes the deals, who regularly does the 30-day deals, is going to make mistakes, but they're also resilient. They're willing to bounce back. They understand that's part of the deal. And they know, I'm going to be ahead longer term from being a person of action, of doing the deals in a quicker span of time than the person who constantly waits and is paralyzed and is thinking, oh, I don't know. That person, it's just not going to happen. This bias for action, I think, is a quality of leaders that make things happen, of entrepreneurs that regularly make things happen, is that they think, okay, I'm going to do it, knowing that, yes, every once in a while I'm going to mess it up and I'll have to learn from it and fix it. And I'm guessing you could probably speak to this better than me. You probably messed up a lot more earlier on, and as you've gotten experience, you're able to do deals quicker, even though you still will mess up every once in a while, but you're more well-versed. So maybe it's one, being newer probably would delay deals, I'm guessing. And then two, of being more of a talker versus a doer would probably be an issue there. So like, if I was going to get into your world, since I don't know anything about it, I would like to think I could do it fast, but initially I probably wouldn't, because I have no idea what's going on unless I had you walking with me side by side and I could just kind of mirror that. That would probably be the way that I would do it, or I would try to hire somebody far smarter than me to help me, and then coach me along the way for a little bit. Hey, here we go. This you got to look for. Don't do this, that type of thing. Think of it this way, and then eventually you let me go, and I could learn it. That's how I would probably attack that, so that I wouldn't just try to like watch YouTube videos and then take a year to make a decision and make a deal. You want to get these things done faster and be a person of action, and not just a reader or a learner. You got to be someone who executes too.
Yeah, he's so incredibly intuitive, because you have no idea how our coaching program is set up. Yet you just described how we interactively run with them and do deals with them, and many mentors don't.
Maybe I'll be one of them at some point, man. Seriously, because I'm diversified as far as my money when it comes to the markets. A financial advisor, we do all that, but like, I don't have any real estate holdings, and I feel like that's from what I've gathered, every person in the history of the world of wealth has real estate as part of their portfolio. In some cases, a huge part of it. So to me, I think it's probably a mistake that I haven't gone deeper. I think part of it is just intimidating, because I don't know, and I'm thinking it would take so much time and effort that I don't currently have to learn in order to be good at it. And so people like me then just never start. You just keep throwing money with your financial advisors, and hopefully, over time that should be fine. But I think being more diversified in the areas where you're at, I'm guessing, would be the wiser choice long term.
Yeah, maybe a future chat we can have.
Yeah, I'm open
super
to it.
cool. And I love a bias for action, the way you said that. So I'm gonna, before we wrap up, a couple things. One is, I'd love to know how these guys can reach you, and what you're like these days. Are you coaching? Are you mentoring? Are you just writing in podcast? Like, what does your day look like now? And how can they get a hold of you? Anyway, anything you want to share at all?
Learningleader.com is the home base for everything: podcast, books, all the stuff I do, leadership circles. So you asked what I do. I mean, a combination of things. Yes, the foundation of everything is the Learning Leader Show, my podcast. I'm recording this afternoon, so I've spent the morning preparing, final preparation for that. I go on the road and speak about 45 times a year. Wow. I do that. World's completely open with that now, at least it appears to be based on my calendar. So which is good. And then I run leadership circles. These are paid mastermind groups. I have 3 of those running right now that I build the curriculum, I run them, I facilitate them. We meet in person once a year. The rest of the year we meet on Zoom. I do a little bit of one-on-one stuff. It's not my favorite thing, but I'll do it for a few people. And then the new thing that started probably within the last 18 months that has really picked up is essentially a leader of a business, whether it's a small business that they own or they work within a bigger business, but they have kind of ownership ability within there. they'll say, we have no real leadership development program. Will you help us build it out? Will you get it launched, teach some of it, in some cases teach all of it? Again, that's really hard. It's customized. It takes forever to do it well. So it's expensive, but I have a few clients that I do that with as well. So I'm kind of, there's probably a better way. To me, I feel like I listen to what the market tells me it wants, and then I experiment and go and be a person of action and do it. And then I learn through the process. I like to say I try to learn while I earn. So I learn through the process of doing it. Oh yeah, this was fun. I got a lot out of it. I think it went really well. I'm going to keep doing it. Or perhaps it'll go, oh, yeah, I'm glad I earned while I did that, but I learned that I don't want to do that anymore. So like I'm open to the fact that's part of how this business is getting built.
Cool. No, really, really cool. Really interesting. Anything, Ryan, that you want to share that I didn't ask you, because we have such a short time, I could peel back your book for 3 hours. Anything that you want to share that perhaps I didn't throw out?
Okay. Can I ask you a question, or maybe more than one?
You sure
for a novice, someone who knows nothing other than the fact that I've bought a couple houses, only the ones that I've lived in.
Yeah.
What are ways somebody who has some resources, so they have some dry powder, I guess, that they could put into play? What are the first few things you would do to say, let's invest some of that money in real estate? So this is, I'm sure I'm not the only one. What are some things that you would advise you to give that person to get started, assuming they know nothing?
Yeah. No, great question. Thank you for tossing it back to me. So 3 things come to mind. One, there's so many shiny objects in real estate. Find a niche that you morally, ethically, and passionately can get behind. There's so much out there.
Like what are niches though? Like
meaning
what niches?
Inside of real estate, there's wholesaling. There's what we do, buying and selling without banks on terms, creative real estate. There's VRBO.
Buying and selling without banks.
We don't take loans with any property we buy. We control about 90 million in real estate and don't take out or sign personally on any loans. All creative real estate. Lease purchase, owner financing, things like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just one niche though, right?
Yeah.
So then there's people that like VRBO, there's the commercial, there's the multis, the Grant Cardones of the world. So there's so many niches. Find that. But then number 2, find someone in that niche that has been through a bunch of market cycles, at least a couple, because if you're not learning from them, you're going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And then 3rd, put the blinders on. I know from your book you agree with this. Put the blinders on for, I say 3 years. When I had Brian Tracy on my show, he said, no, it's 7 years. You need to try for 7 years, is what he said. He shut down my 3 years. So that's the 3 steps I would say in general, but great question.
Okay. Because I've been pitched by people that say, hey, this is kind of done for you. You basically just write the check and then we take care of things. And I'm sure there are fees associated with that in order to not have to like get into the weeds of stuff. That seems like similar to investing in the market. So I don't know if that's somewhat attractive. Don't get me wrong to me, because I'm like, oh, great. I don't have to worry about it because I have other things to worry about. But like, what do you think about that, where there's these certain companies or groups that you can become an investor as part of them, but you don't really do anything? They'll send you updates regularly, but that's kind of the extent of it.
I would say great question. The same thing holds for that, meaning you got to find someone that's been at it and been through a bunch of cycles, because there's a lot of done for you. Turnkey, they call it. Turnkey people that will take a house, they'll flip it, they'll do all that, or they'll rent it and your investments in it. Great, but make sure they've had at least a decade, in my opinion.
Do you do that?
We don't do that. No, I have some private people like my accountant, my attorney, who say, hey, I got some money, I want to do something with it. I'll do it custom like that, but we don't do it as a model.
Got you. Why not?
When I came out of the crash, it was, I'm not borrowing any money from anyone. I'm not borrowing banks. I just choose not to do that. But when they come to me and it's personal, I don't mind doing it.
Okay, cool.
Personal choice on that deal. But I mean, hey, off air, you and I can have a deep chat about that. And we'll see
what type of, this may be, you can cut this if you want, but how long have you been doing this, and like, how has your wealth, like, where is it at now, and prior to you starting all of this?
I'm going on 31 years this September, and coming out of the crash of 2008, that's when what is today happening was born and re-engineered after the crash, because it was banks knocking, values dropping.
So did you like go down to nothing during that time?
Oh yeah. I took
Wow.
I went from a multi-million-dollar property overlooking the water to a one-bedroom apartment with my wife to rebuild. So that was a little bit of an ego slap.
Wow. And so you've
Yeah.
set it up now so that that's kind of, if there's a crash, you're okay.
Yeah. We built this, like, I can't wait for things to cool off because we built this niche to really thrive in all markets, but it
Huh.
frankly does best in flat and going down.
It seems like we're headed that way, aren't we?
Yeah. That's why I call it cooling, because the billionaires don't know. So you and I certainly don't know, right, what the market's
Hmm.
going to do. But it's cooling down. We're a microcosm of society in that we've got a cool community east to west coast. So I just listen and things are cooling down. Yeah. Sellers are
Hmm.
needing guidance right now.
Sorry, I got to stop. I'll go all day with these
Yeah. Yeah. No,
questions.
it's good stuff.
I'm
And
interested in the area because of because I don't know much about it, and I think it's like I said, any person of wealth in history has real estate
100%
as
true.
either all or a big part of their portfolio. And mine, I don't have any other than the home that I live in.
Yeah. We can change that over the next year. So we'll chat. We'll
Okay,
brainstorm it. You are awesome, my man. I'll
thank
put
you.
your link in the show notes because I think your podcast is a writer downer. If they didn't already do that, I told them that earlier in the intro. So I want to make sure everybody gets there and keep up just empowering people like you're doing because you're changing lives, my friend. I love it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Chris.